Welcome once again to the answer to all your motoring prayers. It is, of course, Four Wheels Good. On today's show, we'll be wrapping up warm and fleet-footing it over to Norway for the latest from Mike Nuttall's North Rally saga. We'll also be finding out what it's like to live with Ford's Explorer with the help of Steve Vokins. But first, classic car yearbook author John Stanley has been investigating something with real race pedigree, BMW's rare supercar, the M1, which is definitely not a poser's car.
After the Second World War, there was an enormous shortage of materials and of fuel, and this led to the phenomenon of bubble cars. This one here is an Italian model designed by ISO, which was called an Isetta. It was actually designed for the Italian market, but a struggling BMW in Germany took the rights to this and put their own motorcycle engines in it. They were 250cc. And this was vital to their maintenance of business until they could develop big models. They even manufactured them in England at a deserted railway buildings in Brighton. Apparently, all the supplies had to come by railway, and all the workers had to trudge 100 steps to work. Nearly 25 years later, BMW again looked to Italy, but this time for another kind of inspiration. On the race circuits, their CLSs had begun to age, and the Group 6 racing had become so extreme they were really virtually F1 cars with 2 seats in them. Group 5 was a more interesting prospect for them. It was called the Silhouette formula, and the basis of that was that you could do nearly anything with it, providing the silhouette of the car looked like a road car. Well, that was fine. They had a fine engine. They had the 6, which had a 3.5 straight engine, but they didn't have a body. There had been a 1972 exhibition car, which was called a dream car, which they had shown around the circuits. And they had decided to take that to Lamborghini, who were experts in specialist cars, to see if a production car could be born out of it. However, Lamborghini too were having trouble, and they couldn't pay their bills. So in the end, BMW had to take production back themselves. Now, the delay caused enormous embarrassment to BMW and actually allowed the Group 5 racing to be dominated by Porsche with their 935s. As a result, BMW were really in a bit of a corner. What they did was to create their own one-make series. Many say the greatest one-make race series ever. It ran in all the European circuits alongside the Grand Prix, and it was called the Pro Car. It created champions with Niki Lauda and Nelson Piquet, but it only ran for the 2 years. Then BMW really could do little else, and they stepped back into the shadows and left us with just a handful of beautiful, true supercars. That was the BMW M1. The heart of this beast is under here. It is a beautiful 3.5 4-valve per cylinder straight 6, one of BMW's finest machines. It uses a light alloy head, and it has a dry sump which allows a much lower profile within the chassis and therefore makes the whole body that much more slippery. The exhausts have been sculpted and moved as far as possible away from the heads to try and keep cooling, which is always a problem with mid-engine cars. And their crank itself is even forged in steel so as to make sure everything is perfect. There is, just for a bonus, chain drives that give you an extra soundtrack when you change down and power away. The body itself is designed by Ital. It is full of lovely design codes, these louvres which do a job both for the passage of air and to keep the sun from this window. The body itself is very simple and was from time to time criticised for not being flamboyant like Lamborghini's, but that is BMW's style. You can tell what's going on. The P7s on the back are bigger than the ones on the front, which gives you a clue of its performance. The suspension is all wishbone, which is what you'd expect of a race-proven car. And little details like this. The vent for the back of the radiator with that very famous badge, the BMW. The interior is pretty much what you'd expect. It's the high qualities of the time, and it's full of the nice trim and all the details you could want. BMW tell me that all the dials are original and dedicated just to this car, and certainly they're all written in German, which would be compliant with the fact they only made those in that factory. The overriding feel here is of sitting very far forward, which is similar to the F1 cars of the day. The straight six engine behind us really does take up half the car, so you are sat very close to the wheel and quite close to the head. It's a compact feeling made worse by the very wide tunnel here and the curves to the window, so that you are very isolated from your partner, but very close to all the machinery behind you. It's a very exciting car to drive, but it's actually quite docile, and providing you're sensible with it, you can do long journeys easily. Probably the hardest thing is the gearbox. Where you'd expect first is reverse, and first itself is a dog leg down, which you then have to cross up into second, which is fine, but the clutch itself is a double plated and it's very heavy, and you come a long way up before you engage. So to be a good driver, you have to practice this thing quite a lot. Let's try. The car is actually something of a Jekyll and Hyde, because if you're driving in a higher gear, the engine's remarkably docile, as anyone with a big engine, the BMW, will tell you. It's quite a decent ride. The visibility from the front is actually quite good. It's needless to say dreadful from the rear quarters, and out the back it's just a matter of luck if you spot anything. The clutch is very hard and the travel is very long, so you do have to get the rhythm. But once you have, it really is exciting. You could question whether this is just a BMW poser's car, but the answer is very simple. All you have to do is change down a gear and sneak those cams past 3,500 revs, just as we are now, and it comes alive. You really then have to be a skillful driver. You can reach 50 miles an hour in first, you can be illegal in second, and you can go past or thereabout a ton in third. Top speed's about 160, but realistically the joy is really in the driving, like they say in the ads, and this seriously is a driver's car. Just listen. There are thought to be just 20 of these cars in the UK. This one is the factory's own pride and joy. Had luck not run against them all those years ago, the next step was going to be a V12 5-litre. In the end, it did appear. It was in the McLaren F1.
John will be casting a classic eye on another fine vehicle next week. The world of 4x4 is rapidly taking a stranglehold on the car industry, with every manufacturer vying to be the best on the market. Steve Vokins has been living with one of the possible contenders for the title, the Ford Explorer.
Up until 20 years ago, when you were buying a car, you had to decide four-wheel drive or other car. The other car could be sports, family, estate or whatever, but never the two actually mixed. Then in the late 1970s, some bright spark at Land Rover thought, I know what, I'm going to put 2 more doors on the Range Rover, I'm going to put some wood inside, some carpets, and see if I can sell it to the landed gentry. Sell it as a bit more of a luxury car. The idea took off and the sport utility was born. They had such a success with it that soon after they followed it with the Discovery, another great seller. The markets continued to grow, and now we have Jeeps and very many other types, including the RAV4 by Toyota, and you name it. The latest is the four-wheel drive Ford Explorer. Fresh from the States, as you probably guessed by the styling, but what a fabulous car. It's chunky, it's unique, it attracts lots of attention, and it's loaded with goodies for just £26,000. But what's it like on the road? Let's go and see. Of course, lots of people, when they buy off-roaders, never or very, very rarely go off-road. But you wanted to see what this car was really like off-road, and I'm pleased to say it's very impressive. It's got 3 levels. There's an auto, where most of the time it's in rear-wheel drive and just takes over front-wheel drive when it needs it. There's 4x4 high, and there's also 4x4 low. I've used all 3 during this exercise, and I'm pleased to say they all work extremely well. It never once actually felt like we were going to get bogged down, and we've been through some pretty rough stuff. I like it. It's great fun off-roading. Basically, the only drawback is finding anywhere where you can't go, really. We've been through mud, we've been through grass, we've been through everything that you wouldn't normally dare take a car. And it just says, you know, where's the rough stuff? Oh look, a Ford! Down periscope, I'm coming through. I do like this. But back on the tarmac, back on New Forest roads, where most cars spend most of the time, this car is at home. It doesn't feel like an agricultural tractor. It feels smooth, sophisticated, and at home. The smooth Ford V6 4-litre engine pumps out 203 brake horsepower. It's silky, it's effortless, and it's fun. Built for the American market, this car is equipped with virtually everything. Americans demand it, and it's nice to see it coming as standard on this car. Everything from the electronic compass, electric seat movers, cruise control, air conditioning, they're all here as standard. It's a smooth V6 4-litre Ford engine pumping out 203 brake horsepower through a 5-speed electronic gearbox, automatic. Everything is just there for comfort. And it really is very, very comfortable. I can quite happily travel across country in this, and the only thing I have to watch is the fuel gauge. That's perhaps its downfall. At 23 to 25 on a run, it's not what you'd call frugal, even though it is unleaded. How does the Explorer stack up against the competition? Put it against the Discovery, and I think you'll find it's a better car. It feels more luxurious, feels more complete. Certainly its list of options is enormous compared to the Discovery. It also holds the road better around the corners. On-road manners are far superior. It goes around corners like a car instead of like a Discovery, which very much rolls from side to side. It might hold the road, but it doesn't feel like it's going to. This certainly does. It's £10,000 cheaper than the Range Rover, but it's got a lot of the things that the Range Rover has. It hasn't got the wood and the leather admitted, but it's got all the other specifications as standard, and some things that the Range Rover doesn't even have. I like it a lot, and I like the rounded styling. It feels very modern, very up to date. It's a lovely car to drive, on road and off. It's quite capable of enormous speeds as well. For a big, heavy vehicle, this will cruise at 106 miles an hour, and it's quite happy doing things that really you shouldn't do. Well, not on public roads anyway.
And Steve will be living with another vehicle soon. That's it for part 1. Join us again after the break when we'll be heading back to Scandinavia with rally ace Mike Nuttall, and we'll also be back at the garage for Inside Motors. Welcome back to Four Wheels Good. Now, as you know, we've been wrapping up warm over the last few weeks and heading over to Norway to join rally driver Mike Nuttall. He's been learning to drive on a frozen lake, but this week he adds spiked wheels and forsakes the lake in favour of a real Scandinavian rally stage, complete with trees.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Day 4 of my week at John Hogland's Winter Rally School. Today was the day where 5 other rally drivers and myself were going to put to the test all the new skills and techniques learned during the previous 3 days on a frozen lake. Each week throughout the winter, John teaches rally driving skills to both professional and amateur alike, using a combination of spiked tyres, rally cars and a frozen Norwegian lake. For 3 days, John Hogland, ex-professional Skoda Works driver, had us hammering around a 3-kilometre frozen lake, teaching us how to drive a car that handled in these conditions similar to a rally car on a forest stage. The culmination of the week was to drive one of the stages of the forthcoming Numedals Rally, Norway's equivalent to our RAC rally. Today was that day. It was cold, about -20 degrees, but the forecast was good, and after a few basic checks, it was time for a briefing from John.
Yeah, but no, they are in use now, from now on.
Then it was ladies first. Anna Tate, Skoda Trophy contender, was nominated to be first guinea pig. We'd already driven the stage in convoy behind John's Nissan Patrol, the vehicle he uses for pulling out unfortunate hatless vehicles from snowbanks, ravines, or even worse, from out of the trees. On her first run, Miss Tate was pushing hard, because this was against the clock. It was run like a proper stage, with each car carrying a walkie-talkie, a navigator, and pace notes. On her return, we were all anxious to know how Anna had enjoyed the run. And later, she showed us. The sellotape special of Gethin Jones was next. He'd rolled it on the lake previously. Jay and Greg had made a very commendable job of sticking it back together again with gaffer tape.
Is it leaking? Yes.
Yeah, it is.
This time. See, John, they are leaking. They are leaking. Yeah. But even so, who needs brakes?
Who needs brakes? Brakes are for chickens.
It ticks over, it just doesn't fire up. It doesn't like kick in. So it's turning our engine over.
Yes, yeah. I don't know, it's difficult. Faults that appear and then disappear are an absolute pain and a nightmare to find.
Fix it.
Here in my pocket I have miracles. Today we have a fix-it miracle.
When Jay had finished mending her brakes and Sellotape Man had returned, it was the turn of Natalie Barrett. Natalie was hoping to do the British Championship later this season.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, really enjoyable. Yeah, very, very smooth, sort of quite controlled, which was a good thing. Slippery, yeah, but we had sort of 80 mile an hour up, which was quite good on the uphill bit.
Who did you have in with you then?
And had Greg in with me, but we got a bit lost on the notes, so I was without notes uphill. But downhill we had a bit more notes, which was good.
Good with Julie. That we were right. Those words are start by the tree on the right hand side. So we started too late.
That's why we were out of sync on the notes.
That's why we were at synchro going up.
You got Norwegian notes, have you?
Yeah, but we did all right. We did all right on Norwegian notes, didn't we?
It was quite quick in a few places, wasn't it?
75 we got up to coming down there.
Oh, it's like a fish this big, is it?
75 we got up to coming down there. Pretty quick.
No moments?
No moments.
Not going quick enough.
None at all.
It'll be a bit quicker later now.
But we started from the cones on the notes, not the tree.
Right. It was like, ooh, completely out of sync there.
I said,
no, it's good.
I said, if I carry on reading these notes, mate, you're going to crash.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't mean anything at all.
Yeah, looking forward to it. You looking forward to going out?
Yeah, I'm actually. Yeah.
And before I knew it, it was my turn.
It's going okay, it's been going smooth. We are into the third run now. So everybody will have had 3 runs before we go to lunch. The track is here they do it in about 2.5 minutes. Then they are all improving.
Mr. John?
Yes, Julie?
We need a pull out of this snowdrift. We're at the junction.
Okay, so now somebody gone off. Lost some time, so I have to go, sorry.
The all-knowing, all-seeing Jay.
Well, no, I'm not that great and wonderful. I just...
Oh, great one. But we worship the ground Jay walks on, so we do. Anything, if Jay can't fix it, it can't be fixed.
Well, yeah, out here, that's almost true.
So what's Jade up to now?
Jay's giving me a quick engine lesson as to what's what in my engine. So I now even know where my gearbox is, and he's just been explaining about servo-assisted brakes, which I'd heard of the term, but I didn't understand what it was. So he's just been explaining it to me, and what some bits and pieces are.
What they all do.
But I think people need to keep telling me, because I forget very easily what's what.
I'll keep telling you.
No, Mark, then what happened? Don't blame the car, it's the driver.
Just came around the corner and the sun was through the trees, and it was a series of bends. And I put my hand up to block the sun out, and I couldn't turn the wheel enough.
Try and use your knees next time.
I have to do something. We just went up on a snowbank. That was all. John pulled us off. Your turn next.
Any damage? Are you alright? Is the car alright?
No, yeah, it's fine. It's just soft snow.
So there's no damage, fortunately.
There's no damage. I mean, it's just soft snow. It's one of those things. You'll find out yourself, Nat, when you go off this afternoon. And finally, Claire Moran settling in for her run after Jay had finished educating her on the history of the internal combustion engine.
And we'll visit Mark Nuttall's icy outback again very soon. Well, it's time now to soar over to the garage and see what magical master mechanic Mr. John Wright is doing under the bonnet. That is Inside Motors. Take it away, John.
What we'll do now is go underneath, drop the oil out of the sump. Let's change the oil. Just before we do that, let's see how much there's in. That's lovely. That's just, in fact it's slightly over full, that. Just above the above mark. It should be in that hatched area there between the two. So it's got a sump full of oil. Right, let's go and grovel underneath and get rid of this oil. Right, let's drain the oil out of the sump. As you see, I've got a really fancy thing for draining the oil into. It's an old oil can with the top cut off. You just lift it up. Right, we'll just tighten the sump plug up and then we'll change the oil filter.
John will be back burrowing away in his garage next week. That's about all for this week. On the show next week, John Stanley will be casting a critical eye behind the wheel of Renault's dynamic Spider. And Sam Kenny spends an unusual day with the owners of Volkswagen's classic Carmen Ghia. See you then.